that's not real business. Like I can't just beg people to like support by rotation. You know, my parents, they were like, you are 13 years old and you are on the computer at 2 a.m. What are you doing? Are you on dirty websites? I was like, okay, this could be real. This could be more than just a trend or a fad. I think it could be the next big thing. It could be a movement. So the business that I've created, it needs to help society. It needs to help the environment.
Welcome to Bishness as Usual, the podcast about the people behind the careers. I'm your host, Claudia Bish, and each week I'll be diving into real conversations that go beyond the job titles. Expect honest stories, a few business gems along the way, and a reminder that behind every highlight reel, there's a whole lot more story. Now, let's get down to Bishness. Have you ever looked at your wardrobe full of clothes and still thought you've got nothing to wear, or bought something new for one night out and then felt a bit guilty about it? Today's guest felt exactly the same way, but instead of just complaining about it, she built a solution. She walked away from a corporate career and built a space where wardrobes are shared, not wasted, making fashion feel fun, affordable and sustainable. This is the story of turning a personal frustration into a global movement and what it really takes to change the way we shop.
Hey guys, it's Eshita, the founder and CEO of By Rotation, and this is Bishness as Usual.
Talk to me about growing up, and I guess like your entrepreneurial roots. From like what age did that come into play, or do you want to just roll it completely back from birth? Because I do know you were born in India.
Yeah.
And then moved to Singapore?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through
Sure.
that.
So born in India, in Rajasthan, you know, that's where all the deserts are, all the camels that you see in all the incredible India campaigns. And then moved to Singapore at the age of 2.5. And my parents were in the construction industry and there was a huge housing boom happening. So it was a great time to move there. And, you know, they specifically worked in the marble and granite trade. I guess I was like a first generation immigrant, as were my parents. And then I grew up there until the age of 18 and then went to university in the US and then the UK. And I've been living in UK for the last now 15 years.
Wow. So did you have a double degree, or was like 1 year in?
No, I just transferred. I didn't actually enjoy the college campus life. It was too much of a
sororities.
Shift. Yeah, actually the university I went to is really famous for frats and sororities. And I was like, what is happening? I'm a city girl who used to go like underage clubbing and all that stuff. And then going into a college town where it was just university students, that was kind of shocking to me. I was used to having people of various backgrounds and age groups and professions around me, but you didn't see that in an American college campus.
Was the culture very different coming to the UK?
The UK is very similar to Singapore, I'd say.
Okay.
And I guess it's because, you know, of the past, right? Like India and Singapore, they're all very colonially tied countries to the UK. I think my parents also felt much more at ease leaving me in London than when they dropped me off in the US.
So your parents still in Singapore?
Yeah. So my residence officially is still in Singapore.
Yeah.
But now I've been here 15 years.
Can you ever see
and
yourself
married
going
to an
back?
Englishman. Huh?
Okay, so no. So you're staying in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, we just bought a house like 6 months ago now.
Congrats.
So I think, thank you. I think we're going to be here for a while, but I think I'll always have a place back in Singapore.
Do you often go back to your mum and dad?
You know, I went back at the beginning of the year because my parents bought a new place and I hadn't been back in 5 years because of COVID and everything.
Oh, wow.
So,
so you hadn't seen your family in 5 years?
I hadn't seen them for like 2.5 years. It does happen.
Is that heavy on like life? Or are you kind of used to it? I suppose going is for university and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been away from home now for like 16 years. And I think WhatsApp and things like that are just the way that
technology's made it easier.
Yeah. I'm so used to that. I've almost come to a point where I've spent more time away from my parents than I have growing up with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have like fond memories, and I think a healthy distance is fine. And they come to visit, and my brother lives in London and my sister lives in New York. So it kind of makes sense for them to come see us in the Western world.
Global family.
Yeah.
So I suppose on the topic of parents, I have a little bit of an understanding you grew up with them as entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, so my parents were both entrepreneurs. They are still both entrepreneurs. I think if you're an entrepreneur, you never stop working, even when you're supposed to be retired. And I think growing up, I really saw my dad make it in a sort of rags to riches way. And, you know, every time someone asks me, who's your role model? I think for me, it has to be my parents and my dad in particular. I've just seen the struggle that he's been through. I actually know him as a person, so I know how he can be beyond just like, I guess, the highlights that you see of a successful person. So I find him to be very inspiring. And I think, I do believe that a certain degree of leadership and entrepreneurship is innate. I do think it's something that we are born with. Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, I suppose bringing it back to like growing up, my dad had his own business, well, still does.
Yeah.
So did my mum. But they never, I don't know about you, but I don't have any memory of them coming home. Well, my dad more so, but I don't have memory of like my mum being severely stressed. I don't feel like they ever brought that stress home.
Yeah.
So when I went into business, I don't feel like I was mentally prepared. Like you guys made it look so easy as children.
Yeah.
So why haven't you mentally prepared me for, like, I've told you I'm starting a business. Why didn't you tell me not to?
Yeah.
Because I've grown up, you all making it look so, and my dad's company especially is like a machine, like a lot of staff, a lot of stress. Like they didn't bring that home. Like, did you feel like your parents mentally prepared you to start?
I think I had seen it growing up, that there were a lot of stresses on my dad, who obviously was raising 3 young children, and, you know, and we were nowhere close to our relatives. So we didn't really have any support, you know, beyond just the financial side. So I think you could sense the pressures and the change and emotions and moods. But, you know, it was really funny because I had no idea or recollection of us going through a tough time during the Asian financial crisis in 2002. Our parents completely shielded us from that, and they only told us when we became much older, so we became like teenagers going to university, that actually there was a point of time where my parents were not able to, you know, make much money in their business because no one wanted to build shopping centers and buildings during a financial crisis, which was obviously, you know, generating no volumes for them. And I was like, wow, you guys really protected us. We had no idea that, you know, in a moment of time, we might have to sell everything and move back to India. And I think I have a lot of respect for that, to be honest. It just shows you that when the going gets tough, that's when you kind of know who are the ones who are really, really strong, you know, in their business acumen and have the tenacity to continue on. I feel like I definitely, you know, have that ingrained in me. And we had this thing every Sunday called the LLS, my dad called it. So while all my friends would be rollerblading and swimming and going to the park, my dad would be like, it's Sunday morning, I need to teach you guys all the things you don't learn in school. That's LLS, life learning skills. And it would be things like negotiation and like, you know, how to be tactical, how to think about things commercially. And, you know, we were just kids, you know, we were just like, oh, this is so annoying. This is so boring. Why do we have to be here? And it's funny because all of those things are now coming back to me. And I'm so grateful that they're subconsciously in here. And
because it's that thing, isn't it? Like you don't learn most of the things you actually need at school.
It's crazy.
So
the curriculum really fails us.
Yeah. I mean, I think if my parents attempted LLS on us, we'd have, like Luca, my brother, used to have extra tuition after school.
Yeah.
He'd be doing like handstands, doing the maths equations and stuff. Like I think if our parents sat us down, like, this is how VAT works. Yeah. We'd be like, please.
Yeah, we don't need
Leave us alone.
Yeah.
So you must have had great discipline, even as a kid.
I think so. It's funny because you think about all these things that they did and you're like, why were they so annoying? Why did we have to do all this? And now I look back at it and I was like, now I understand. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I have this discipline in me because I could have ended up the other way.
For sure. So, I mean, I suppose fast forwarding throughout that childhood, you then have the concept. Oh, no, you don't. You then come out of university and go into a corporate job.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk me through that. Is that something you wanted?
Well,
that was the vision?
Well, the thing is, growing up, I was actually web designing and selling my layouts on this thing called Neopets. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Neopets as in?
The virtual pet.
I loved that.
Oh my God, maybe we knew each other. God. And I had friends back then.
Maybe.
Pen pals, yeah.
I remember one Christmas, I can't remember what age I would have been then, but the computers were like that thick.
Yeah, with the back,
like
right?
So huge. Yeah. And then I woke up on like Christmas Day and my dad had all set this computer up and I thought it was the best thing ever. The first thing was Neopets. Like everyone has Neopets. I used to sit and spend hours on Neopets.
Okay, so you know about it.
No, I know. Yeah.
And the paintbrushes.
Amazing.
And things like that. Okay.
I'd love to see what that
Yeah.
looks like now.
Oh, you know, it's still going.
Really?
And I think they raised a bit of money, so they're trying to make it cool again. And maybe they'll do well, you know, in
That is so nostalgic. Because then it had a glow up, and I know it wasn't the same company, but then it was
Yeah.
like Club Penguin, wasn't it, after?
Was it? I
As
don't
in,
know.
like, it was a mini clip. And then it was kind of like a similar-ish, I guess. Miniclip was the gaming platform, but pre-Miniclip was Neopets.
The OG.
Yeah.
It's such a shame because I think it could have been so big. Yeah, I don't know if the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas will be into it. But hey, Labubus are coming back, so maybe that will work out. But Neopets is how I discovered the online world, so as to say. And I learned about, well, I self-taught how to build communities, how to graphic design, how to sell my graphic layouts to other people across the world. It was funny because, you know, my parents, they were like, you are 13 years old and you are on the computer at 2 a.m. What are you doing? Are you on dirty websites? And I was like, no, I'm selling my layouts on PayPal. And they're like, what are layouts? What is PayPal? And, you know, this is like back in the day when I think PayPal was maybe 2 or 3 years old. And I think that was my first sort of experience with entrepreneurship. And I remember my dad was actually very proud of me. He was like, there's something about this girl. She wants to break the rules. She doesn't listen to us, but she's gone and found a business opportunity, even though she's selling layouts for like $12, which is nothing. It was kind of creative and genius. And my dad actually told me when I was younger, he was like, if marketing and advertising and, you know, creating designs and photography is what you want to do, you should do it. I remember that for my 16th birthday, he bought me like a Canon. I think it was like the, I don't know, 350D or something. I can't remember right now. And I think that was really, really cool because they essentially really encouraged me to go into a more creative side. During high school, I realized that during university, I realized that the only way I would be able to stay in the UK after graduating would be if I did a more technical job, which had my visa to be sponsored. And that's when I realized, as much as I wanted to do marketing and, you know, what was that TV show about marketing? Mad Men. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, not like a fictional show.
Yeah, the TV show,
Okay.
Mad Men. And as much as I thought I love that kind of life, like, you know, advertising, marketing, because marketing is basically psychology. It's influencing people and convincing them to buy things that they maybe don't need. And I always thought that was so intriguing. And it's nice how you can blend creativity into, you know, influencing people, essentially. I kind of realized that I wouldn't be able to get a job at an ad agency or in marketing because, you know, they don't need international students to fill those roles. They can just get that from British and European students back in the day when there wasn't Brexit. So I was like, okay, well, maybe since I'm in business school, I should focus on the companies that will sponsor my visa. And that was all the management consulting firms, the banks, the asset managers. So I ended up going into finance. And I spent my first 6.5 years of my career working in investment management, which was amazing. But then clearly there was an itch to do something creative and follow in my dad's footsteps and found my own business. And that's when I founded By Rotation as a side hustle in October 2019.
So talk me through, I suppose, that process of, because that is a transition. I suppose in 6.5 years, you're comfortable by that point in probably your role there. Even if you have that itch, it's taking a big risk. Did you view it as a risk at the time?
Definitely. I didn't even, because I founded it as a side hustle, so it clearly shows you that I was kind of risk averse. Like I didn't want to just wake up one day and be like, I'm quitting my job, it's all gonna be okay, I have a bit of savings, life will be fine. I just wasn't fully sure that this was my calling. And it took me 6 months until the day that our app officially launched, because in the beginning we had like a test website, but until I started seeing enough volumes on the platform, I was like, okay, this could be real. This could be more than just a trend or a fad. I think it could be the next big thing. It could be a movement. So that's when I decided to quit my job, my career in the industry. And yeah, I have to say there was a lot of hesitation. And it's because, you know, there was a big opportunity cost of giving up financial stability. You know, I could no longer, you know, spend my weekends doing Pilates and going for like bottomless alcohol brunch with my girlfriends anymore. It was suddenly like all my free time would be spent networking and building out the app essentially. And looking back at it, I'm really glad I took those 6 months of the side hustle to fully appreciate that I would completely be changing my life.
So you went from doing it on the side for those initial 6 months. At what moment, I suppose, how many sign-ups and stuff like that did you have before you thought, okay, this is actually going to, I mean, I'm guessing you thought it would succeed from day one anyway.
Yeah.
I suppose at what moment did you think, wow, this is going to do well?
So I think in the early days, I was begging all my friends and friends of friends to sign up to the app and list their items. Well, not the app, the test platform. And, I was like, okay, well, everyone using the test website is my friend or friend of friend. That's not real business. Like, I can't just beg people to support by rotation. And that's when I was like, okay, the target needs to be 50 transactions from people I do not know, and not just within London, because this is not a business for London people only. This has to be countrywide, and one day it has to be global. So that's when I set it all about the number of listings we had on the platform, not from my friends and not from me, from strangers essentially, and also the number of transactions that would happen without my circle. And that was super important for me to get the sort of, proof points that I needed, that I wasn't just building something that only I wanted. Because I think sometimes, as founders, we can be so passionate and, excited about this amazing idea that we've built up in our minds. We don't actually realize that maybe no one else really cares about it. We don't need yet another, skincare brand that a celebrity has slapped their name on. You know what I mean? So I think getting those sort of data points was super important before I would make the full leap.
Going from finance, corporate to sustainable fashion, which I suppose the way that you've positioned it is also tech. Well, it is tech, it's a tech platform. How did you know what the hell you were doing? I know you obviously had early experience of building websites and stuff, but this is a whole empire and machine now. So how did you learn as you go? Did you have staff? I want to know that process of how you actually learn, because those industries aren't necessarily intertwined really.
No.
At all.
And we've built something completely different. I like to think it's completely disrupting.
Yeah.
It's similar to Airbnb, but no one thought about building Airbnb for items.
Yeah.
For fashion, for designer things. They only thought about it as hotel rooms and apartments. Well, cars are a new thing as well. You've got some car sharing platforms. So I think we've definitely taken it to the next level. And, while doing so, along the way, we've updated the app so many times that now it looks like a social network. It kind of looks like you're browsing Instagram when you're actually looking at people's items and then deciding to book them. So it's also a booking platform. So there's a lot of things we figured out along the way. I wouldn't say I ever had a coach or a mentor. I didn't really go for any specific courses. I did, however, implement a lot of the learnings I had from business school and then from my job in finance. So all the hard skills like financial modeling, budgeting, finding investors. We are venture backed, but we also have angel investors. So across the spectrum, we've got multiple different types of investor types, and knowing how to manage and communicate with them. One of the things that I reflecting on it, I think that my team and I have done different is that none of us are really part of the fashion industry. I have no experience in that industry. This is very much a tech business, but it's also not just a tech bro business, because neither of us are tech bros. In fact, I would say 80% of the team is female. So we kind of implemented it in a way that we thought how we wanted it to be as a customer, as a consumer. I'm someone who spent a lot of time shopping online, as a shopaholic Singaporean. I knew how apps like Net-a-Porter or the Outnet worked. I also spent a lot of time on social media and a lot of time, following amazing influencers with great taste. And I was like, how do we bring all of this together and make it a booking platform like Airbnb, where I can make money, I can also rent things for cheaper, and I can also, help another person make money. And I think that's how we built By Rotation, by completely forgetting what the fashion industry expects fashion businesses to do and what the tech industry expects tech startups to be like and what their product should be. We just created something completely different. And that's something that I think, kind of requires this mentality of not looking sideways and being like, oh, but if, Net-a-Porter did this as a fashion tech company, or listed this as a fashion tech company, maybe we should follow their journey. I was just completely in my own world. And I know we spoke about this, Claudia, but I don't really listen to most podcasts. I don't really listen to I don't really read a lot of self-help books or whatever, because then everyone's reading the same book. Yeah. Then everyone's doing the same thing. And I think that's something that we'll find out in time, whether it was the right way or not.
True. I feel like everyone, I'm such a hypocrite because I've literally just started a podcast, but I do feel like there's so many different opinions out there now. One podcast will tell you, like I actually saw something yesterday that was a whole podcast about your gut instinct and how you should really trust, just go with your gut. Don't trust anything else, just go with your gut. And then about 2 hours later, I saw someone release a podcast about the last thing you should do is trust your gut. Like, and it's just, everything is so conflicting that I think it comes to a point where you do have to just go on your own path and your own journey rather than be heavily influenced by, they've done really well, so let's replicate their path.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that that's going to work for you.
Everyone is so different. Like our stories are different. The way that we're wired is different. So what might work for some people might not work for you.
Exactly. And I suppose, I mean, this really reinforces that I'm so new to this and have no idea what I'm doing, because we haven't actually truly touched on, for those that are listening that don't know what buy rotation is, I suppose just to go through the tech and the whole process of the business, like what actually in black and white do you do?
Buy rotation is a social network where you can lend and rent designer and premium lifestyle goods with each other. So you can save money because you can rent things like designer fashion for 10% of retail value. You can make money. Some of our top lenders make more than £4,000 a month just from lending out things like their dresses, which are hanging in the wardrobe. And then you can also make new friends, because a lot of people end up following each other on the app and then they repeat rent from the same person over and over again. And finally, because you're not buying new clothes, you're also ensuring that brands are producing less quantities of items, and you're helping with the problem that we have, which is waste in the fashion industry. You know, the fashion industry is the third most polluting industry in the world. It's more polluting than things like taking a flight, which is crazy.
Wow, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. It overtakes aviation and maritime combined.
Wow. So did you go into the business thinking about sustainability, or?
To be honest, it wasn't the first reason that I founded Buy Rotation. You know, I was just a shopaholic from Singapore who was like spending every month buying new things with my salary. And I was like, it'd be so cool if instead of having all this stuff and wanting to buy it just for my holiday, I could rent it from this amazingly dressed woman on Instagram because of OOTD, outfit of the day. I wonder if I could like message her and be like, can I pay you to borrow your outfit for a week? But that's weird, right? Like a stranger, a fan of yours, messaging you saying, can I borrow your clothes? Like, that's a bit creepy.
Yeah.
And that's when I started thinking about the idea, and I thought about how it would be different from other, you know, fashion rental companies. Like you've got quite a few well-known ones in the US that have been around for like 16 years, but they all have inventory. They all buy stock and then they hold it in warehouses. But for me, I just want to wear what you're wearing because I love your style and I don't mind paying you for it. And maybe we can become kind of friendly with each other along the way. So that was really the idea, you know, the community side of it. And then it wasn't until my honeymoon, so the trip that I was going on, that I saw a lot of landfill and textile waste in the suburban part of India that I was going to, which is Rajasthan. And that's when I was like, India and Rajasthan in particular are so not known for their textile manufacturing. Like a lot of times when you see clothing that says made in India, it's actually made there where I was born. And I was like, this is just crazy, because all the landfill waste, you know, all the clothes that we don't want in the Western world, they end up being sent to African and Asian countries like my own, which is just like, the whole thing is kind of racist if you think about it. Like the moment that you don't want something in the Western world, you throw it, you know, to the Eastern world. And for me, I was like, I think I'm a part of the problem, because I bought a bunch of clothes for my honeymoon and I don't know if I love them. I got my photos in them and I'll end up donating them, but like 90% of donations end up in these landfills. And that's when I was like, this idea that I have for like a fashion sharing community, it's not just about fashion. It could actually be positive for the climate. And the climate is something that I've always thought a lot about growing up. I think, you know, we had environmental education in primary school.
Yeah.
And growing up in Singapore, which is, you know, near the equator, you definitely could see all the thunderstorms and you would get warnings. Or, I mean, I felt an earthquake in Singapore, which is crazy. It was when I was studying for my, when you were 16 years old, I don't know what the exams are called.
GCSEs.
Yeah,
A-levels?
exactly.
16?
Yeah. I thought I was going crazy because I had overstudied. I was like, am I losing my mind? And then, you know, all of us friends were like, no, I think there's an earthquake happening. And, you know, it's because we're near the Ring of Fire, which is Bali and Indonesia and all of that.
Yeah.
And I think I was always very aware about nature and the climate crisis. And yeah, yeah, it just felt like a calling, you know. When I was graphic designing at the age of 11 and building all these websites, I had built this message board before the days of Reddit, which was really to get a lot of the other graphic designers on Neopets to all hang out and chat about random stuff, including graphic design. And it's funny because I was building a digital community back then, and now I've just gone and done that again. So I feel like it just becomes a full circle or a rotation, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, of course. I suppose you have Vinted, Depop and stuff like that to purchase and keep secondhand items, which is exactly for the environment too. But I was just having thoughts about everything not long ago when using the platform. And okay, sustainability is great. And I actually am all for that. This is going to make me sound so unrelatable. But about 3 years ago, I got burgled.
Oh God, that is awful.
Or it was the most traumatic experience. Yeah. It was, and it wasn't actually
Besides
about the stuff.
Things. Yeah.
The number one thing was the violation. I wasn't precious about the stuff that went missing. Like I actually, it was gutting, but beyond that, I just felt so unsafe and it was horrendous. But anyway, that's for therapy. So, I mean, they took a substantial amount. I'd spent years building my handbag collection and I was so proud of this handbag collection. They took every handbag. I was heartbroken. But you guys stock Chanel, all of my favourite, the Birkins, the Chanels, on by rotation. So as well as the environment, I mean, having a platform where you don't need to you don't need to kind of store all of these expensive handbags in your home and feel really vulnerable, because now I don't store any nice handbag in my house because I am in constant freak out mode that someone is going to break the glass and come inside. I can just go on your website and have it for one evening.
Yes.
Love the bag, and then it can go away and I can feel safe.
Exactly.
Which is, again, I know that's not relatable to everyone, but it's such an added benefit from where that's given me that extra safety.
But it's such a great way to also enjoy things that maybe might be inaccessible for you. I mean, besides the price point, not everyone is invited to buy a Kelly or a Birkin. Like, we're telling you that there's no line here and there's no like policy of having to buy before you get invited finally to buy these things. So I don't know, I feel like we've democratized fashion for people of all walks of life, and I think that's really powerful. And then I personally love renting things like designer bags, because, you know, a lot of times I'm not really sure that I want to invest in that for a long time, but I do want to try it out, and then I can make up my mind and be like, okay, that was amazing, I got a lot of compliments, I think it works with many different outfits. Or equally, that had a weird handle and the shape is completely, you know, I can't store anything useful in it. And then you kind of realize that, you know, you can basically try before you buy. And I think it's really, really good for that. And, you know, as I mentioned, a lot of people who are renting these high value bags and, you know, couture dresses, they're not doing it because of financial reasons. They're doing it because those items are no longer sold. Like, the only way to be able to wear like a Ralph Lauren gown from 2008 is by renting it, because it can only be found on buy rotation.
So in terms of like insurances and stuff.
Oh yes, if
I want to list one of my Birkins on buy rotation and it comes back with the handle hanging off, how, I suppose, as a platform, do you deal with that process?
So we charge cards for the person who is renting the item from you. And everyone has a set amount of ratings and reviews that they need to have before they can even send you a rental request. So it's not for everyone. You have to unlock that.
Oh, okay, love that. So if I list my stuff, it's going to safe hands.
Yes, but there might be interest to rent it, but they will realize that they cannot rent it until they have a certain reputation on the app. So we've gamified it. So you couldn't just download the app today and rent a Chanel bag. You need to build up your profile to unlock levels. It's kind of like a game.
I mean, that is so reassuring though, because when I watched a TikTok about a week ago of someone that was walking into their Airbnb that they'd rented out to a party of, I don't know, 18-year-olds, and the property was just completely ransacked. It was actually disgusting. I think it was awful.
I mean, apparently, you know, there's reports that there's like a very secret department in that company which deals with things like that. And even more grisly things.
I mean, they found, not to go into too much detail, but I've seen videos where properties have been rented out to parties and stuff like that on whichever platform. And there's like needles, not injections, all sorts, like awful. So I think maybe some platforms could actually implement the structure that you've
yeah.
put in place.
You know, for us, we know what's the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
which is like, you know, no one's being injured or doing
Yeah.
illegal things. Like the worst case scenario is that a bag is, you know, missing or it's broken beyond damage and needs to be repaired or replaced completely. So I think for us, it's kind of a different game to the other platform you mentioned where things can be very, very serious. And that's why I think, you know, what we are doing is very different to all the other platforms. And we've learned a lot of things along the 6 years as well, like how to make it more trusted, how to ensure that community, reputation and goodwill always comes first. But yeah, I mean, it's getting people to understand that the sharing economy makes sense for something like fashion. Like, why should you buy a dress for £400 and never share it with anyone else and only wear it once in your life? Like, it makes sense to get as many wears as you can. You know, they call it cost per wear. And that's how we're making people, I guess, much more strategic when they do go shopping for new clothes.
I mean, I'd love to know how big, because how many years now have you been operating? Let me do the math.
It's going to be 6 years.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So a lot of companies don't make it past the 5-year mark, which is so daunting, but actually you've gone and scaled amazingly within this 6 years. Bear in mind 6 months of that was
18 months. COVID.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Skipped a whole era. So yeah, I mean, how big has this platform now got?
So we've got over 1.5 million downloads in the UK and US. So we launched in the US as well, which is super exciting because I always wanted this to be a global business, and US seemed like the next place to go to after proving ourselves in the UK. You know, we're the market leader in the UK. We're growing really fast in the US. We've raised a bunch of money, both from institutionals, so like venture capital. You know, we are VC backed. We've got some amazing angel investors as well. And yeah, I think it's been quite a journey because it's been 6 years in, and I won't lie and say I wish we were on this crazy rocket, but what I have understood is that, you know, obviously there's been a lot of macroeconomic challenges. Like the economy isn't great, you know, people are not spending that much on fashion. You know, you've seen companies like Essence recently, you've seen Matches Fashion go bankrupt, you've seen Luisa Via Roma is, you know, filing for protection from bankruptcy. It's been really, really difficult in e-commerce, and shoppers are not really buying luxury fashion anymore because it's just too expensive. And we really hope that this will make them realize that secondhand and rental in particular is more cost effective than perhaps even resale, because resale has been a very established space. Sure. You know, you've had eBay, that's I think like 30 years or something.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't really remember life without
exactly
eBay.
Yeah, it's basically like a verb for us, like why don't you eBay it, you know? It's not about the crazy growth fueled journey that people expect you to have, because obviously it's very exciting on social media to see, oh my god, we're killing it, we did this again, we did that, you know, we sold out within an hour and all of that. I don't think that's our journey. Our journey is reminding people that it's about sharing and actually maybe being much more considerate and conscious. So we don't want people to rush, but we do want them to form habits, and habits take time. And that's what I've essentially understood. I want 1,000 super fans. I don't want 100,000 people who know about the company and have used it once.
And I mean, based on, I suppose, friends that have had investment in their businesses and stuff like that, it's rare that you hear that someone's not under pressure to meet targets and stuff like that when they've had that backing.
So true. I think what differentiates us from other companies that have maybe taken on funding externally is that I've ensured that I continue to have a very large majority in the business. So at the end of the day, you know, my investors, and I have a very good relationship with my investors, and you'll be surprised at how many founders do not have a good relationship with their investors. But I have a very good relationship with my investors, and they cannot really force me to do something that I don't want to do. So if I think growing and spending money and, you know, throwing it at the wall at all costs is not the right way, then we will do what I think is the right way. And we've seen it to be that we want to make people develop habits over time. And, you know, habits, again, they take time. So we're not just going to throw money at the problem and, you know, convince everyone that they need to change their lives and never buy fast fashion ever again. And, you know, I think that's actually made us become a very, very well-respected company and brand. You know, I do believe that we're building something that is going to be like a staple in the fashion space. It's not just a brand that is killing it for like 2 or 3 years and is the brand of the moment. I think we're going to be around for the next 10, 15, 20 years like Airbnb is. And I always talk about Airbnb because I think that's the kind of company that I want to be. You know, the co-founder is still the CEO even after listing the company. That's how devoted he is to the mission that he set out about 20 years ago.
When you did get that initial investment, how early was that into starting?
So I bootstrapped the business for the first year. So I used my savings and my salary. So I would work at the hedge fund and I would pay my freelancers and my senior developer, who's now my CTO. Eventually, unfortunately, it was during COVID where I was like, okay, well, to continue on, now that I've taken the leap to go full-time on buy rotation, I need to start formalizing some freelance roles that we have in the company and give people jobs. And that's when I raised my first external round, and that was a friends and family round. And interestingly enough, actually, a lot of my ex-colleagues came in the round. So another reason why actually working corporate, like having a job before you start your own business, can be helpful, because actually those people could end up investing in you. And the UK is great because there's programs like SEIS and EIS, which give you tax rebates if you invest in innovative companies such as buy rotation. So we had a lot of great angel investors come in the round. And then after that, we ended up being venture backed, which was super exciting. And, you know, it obviously, you sign up to crazy growth targets, which, you know, if the economy is not on your side, you have to scale back and kind of revisit those targets. And I think we've been so careful as soon as we got any wind that things were actually much more challenging right after COVID ending, that we started spending our money very, very wisely. So we're actually on track to become profitable by next year, which a lot of tech companies, they struggle to do that ever in their life. You know, if you think about a company like Meta, it only recently started making money, and that's through ad revenue. If you think about a company like Clubhouse, which has raised more than hundreds and millions of dollars, it's still not making any money, and it one day will through ad revenue.
So, I mean, thank you for being so, I suppose, transparent that you've not hit that profit margin as of yet.
Yeah.
But you know it will come. So it's fine.
Yeah.
For the last 6 years, I suppose, how have you maintained your own like personal lifestyle? Have you had like stresses or moments where you're like, oh my God?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was a year when things were going bad, you know, especially on the tech side of things, consumer tech, funding had completely dried up. And that's when my board and I were like, we need to start looking at the costs that are happening every month. You know, you might have to look at cutting costs, which means potentially you'll need to see which team members you don't really need right now. And I remember this difficult conversation where I was like, I'm not cutting any of my team members. We have been together for long enough. They have always been there for me. They work super hard. And just because, you know, a few of these months ahead are going to be challenging, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to get rid of them after all these years of service. And I decided to cut my salary to basic tax allowance. And you know, my board was like, I mean, that's exemplary leadership, but are you sure you can manage with that? And I was like, you know what? I am in a fortunate position where I can lean on my husband. And I think there's a lot that isn't said about being a founder and being an entrepreneur, which is that a lot of us can be founders and entrepreneurs because we have safety nets. So I fully appreciate my position of, I suppose, privilege in that I get to be a founder. And that's when I was like, I get to be a founder. These guys, like my team, they work so hard. They want this job. They need this job. So if we need to cut costs, we're cutting my salary. And that's fine.
I mean, there's such a massive lack of transparency, I think, when it comes to
being a founder.
Yeah, and I think so many people as well that can found a business that get this huge come up, but people actually don't understand what the true, I mean, there's someone in the public eye, I'm not going to sit here and name names at all, that everyone is like, oh my God, they are the most amazing founder. They've come from nothing. And I'm like, but I know their parents gave £1 million to kickstart that company. Like, not everyone has that.
Exactly.
Backing. So again, it goes back to replicating what they're saying online built their business, but actually whether it's black, and that was so important for me on this podcast, is I want just honest conversations, because it isn't as black and white as what everyone may think.
That's the problem, you know, when founders cry on social media and they're like, life is so tough, I'm going through such a hard time, you know, I've given up so much for this business and this is where we are. And I'm just like, be more honest. Like, you don't have to worry about rent or things like that. There are people who literally, you know, they're thinking about feeding their kids lunches for school. And that's when I'm like, we don't realize how privileged we are that we get to be founders and that people want to buy or support our services.
I know quite a few founders that genuinely have had such a tough come up.
Yeah.
Where they have had to get into so much debt to build that company, and where it's genuine from like really humble beginnings, and it's been rough.
And I think given my dad's,
Yeah.
like, I'm so privileged because he made it.
Yeah.
And for me, I will always remember, and I really celebrate the underdog. I feel like these are the people who have come
Yeah, you've
against
seen it
all
firsthand with your dad, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think when you have the other public eye entrepreneurs that have had really amazing backgrounds but blag the council estate story, that's when it's frustrating,
Yeah.
I think, for the ones that actually really truly have had that true struggle.
And that's where, this whole, I don't know what you call it, like sympathy porn or whatever. I'm not going into that story.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in Singapore. It was a privileged upbringing. That country is a city state. It's a bubble. Like, shopping is their national hobby. So I understand my privilege. And the way that I see it is I want to use my privilege for good. So the business that I've created, it needs to help society. It needs to help the environment. Otherwise, I need to go do something that helps people. And so, I don't know, I feel like this whole thing about being a girl boss, I'm actually very against it.
I say in the trailer of this podcast that we're like programmed now to think that journaling, manifesting, waking up at 5 a.m. is going to give you that success.
Yeah.
And
no,
it does not look like that.
I binge watch TV shows.
Yeah.
And I do nothing on a Sunday. And I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel like I need to be so productive, and I don't feel the need to share my diary with everyone and all of my followers, because actually building in private, there's a lot to be said about that. Why should you share your secrets? That's the whole point of being a private limited company. It's interesting, and maybe I don't know what you think about this, but I thought, especially because I'm not British, I thought that, the Brits are known for like a stiff upper lip. They're meant to be more private. They don't share their emotions that much. But suddenly, and I don't know if it's like a social media thing, everyone is sharing too much.
Yeah, I had this conversation actually literally yesterday.
What happened to the Brits?
I know.
Where's the Hugh Grant?
I think we had this conversation actually this morning because my partner he likes to be private.
I like that.
And he is like, when the time comes when we have a baby, let's have the conversation now. That is not being posted anywhere. Like, there's elements of our life that I want to keep private. And I'm like, I 100% get that. But can I post its hand? But then I'm in my head like, why am I even thinking?
What are you planning
about?
That?
Yeah, like
I've thought about it. Yes.
I'm not pregnant. Why am I thinking about Instagram? Like, can we post its foot though?
Yeah.
And he's like, why do you care to share the baby's foot on Instagram? And it is so true. It's like taken over. And I've spent the last 10 years of business so private. Yeah. Completely behind the scenes.
And
not
I think it's
one
nice
picture. And I've loved it.
Well, also it builds
Why am
mystery.
I doing this?
And now more people will be interested in the podcast because it'd be like, finally, we get to know what Claudia's thinking and like how she builds relationships and chats with people. And I think that's kind of nice, like not opening your entire kimono.
Yeah, for sure. But I suppose it's just, private life is, I think...
I miss the 2000s Brit culture that I knew.
Bring us back to Neopets.
Yes, and Hugh Grant.
Yeah. I guess, I've always been very skeptical in terms of our industries are different, but in terms of ever getting investment, just because I've seen how it shaped other people and it can either go one of two ways.
Yeah.
You received your investment fee. How did you, I suppose, opt to invest in this, invest in that? Like, where did the bulk of that money go?
So we're a tech company, first and foremost, and there's like a fashion spin to it because people are renting and lending fashion to each other. But really, even to date, 6 years in, our largest expense is on our development team. So our engineering costs, essentially, which is building out the app. So the app that we've built, it 100% belongs to us.
Yeah.
We haven't used any like third-party platform or anything. And
how much of that investment did you use on the tech side of it?
I would say probably like 45% of it goes on the tech side, and the other 55 goes into marketing and hires and the other sort of admin that comes along with registering in a new market such as the US. And I think it again is a testament to what the business model is. It's a two-sided tech marketplace.
Yeah.
So we need to keep ensuring that it has new features, that, we are updating it to incorporate things like AI, which is obviously such a big thing now for the last 1.5 years. We need to keep innovating and improving ourselves, and the money goes into that rather than marketing.
Yeah.
Because I think the storytelling for us, given that our customers are basically our marketeers, a lot of people tell each other that you can rent my stuff and buy rotation. We spend almost nothing on marketing besides our marketing staff. And that's something...
I suppose it speaks for itself though. Like, I've seen creators, we were saying about our friend Yasmin that I always see post by rotation.
And that's a very organic relationship. It's a friendship, and she just believes in the business. So we luckily enjoy a very good reputation in the industry where people are like, this business just makes sense and the app works. It's great. like, I just support it.
And marketing is not cheap.
No.
I mean,
It can go out of hand.
Yeah. And I mean, already in the business, we're talking, you've invested 7 figures.
Yeah.
To then have a whole other expense of the marketing to get that essentially for free is incredible.
Yeah. And I think obviously we've spent some money on like paid marketing and things like that. And I think it was a different day in like 2022 and 2023. In our experience, paid marketing on social platforms has been quite weak. It's just because the algorithm is changing so much. Like, you know, the type of content that used to perform really well 3 years ago is very different to what performs well.
The landscape
and you know,
is always changing.
Exactly. And I think for us, the best use of the resources, and bear in mind, we've only raised $5 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but actually over time, it's not a lot of money. By the time you're paying salaries, you're paying for engineers, very expensive. That all goes, you know? So we've actually made that conscious effort to ensure that every time we spend anything, we really monitor our return on investment on those costs. But I think what you said was really interesting at the beginning of this topic, which is that, you know, there's a lot of question marks about whether a founder should raise money externally. And there's always this headline that, you know, you see in like press articles, like, you know, this person raised this money, this company raised this much money. But I think the other really important thing that is being missed out from the headline is how much equity did you have to give up to raise this money? And what did the company actually do with this money? Did they just spend, I don't know, $10 million on marketing and essentially like, you know, an ego project? Or did they actually, you know, 10x the revenue during the same time? Because that's a good use of money. And I think that conversation and that education is missing. The focus has been too much on raising money. It's not been on how do we get this business to break even and become profitable, which is why, you know, you see a lot of amazing founders out there like yourself who haven't had to raise external money. You own 100% of the business. When the business is profitable, 100% of those profits are yours, and you can share them with your employees or you can reinvest them in the business. That's really creating long-term value. And to be honest, this is the kind of stuff I learned in business school and in my job. I also found this interesting because when I went to undergrad university in the UK, I was studying business management, and there were only 3 people out of 110 students in our class that were British. It was because I was told that British people don't really study business. And it's funny.
I feel like it's maybe more of a generational thing.
Yeah.
Because I hear it, and I mean, we obviously get CVs every day from people that want to work at the company.
Yeah.
I feel like business, I'm seeing crop up more and more on CVs
exactly.
now, but throw it back to 10 years ago when we I first started hiring 8 years ago.
15 years ago.
But
yeah.
It was never a business degree on there. Whereas now, like my cousins that are going to university and stuff like that now,
yeah,
that's what they're opting for. But it wasn't ingrained in us as, like, my parents were really big on go to uni and do either maths, science or English.
Yeah.
That's what we were told.
Exactly.
And I was like, no, I want to do media. I really wanted to do media. And my mum was like, with all due respect, you're not doing media. I was like, I'm doing media. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she was like, go and do loads of internships. As many places as you can. She definitely, I don't know, she's offered them a drink or something because everyone was going, don't do media, do an English degree. So anyway, I ended up doing an English degree. But on reflection, I don't know why. Yeah. Like, just because that's what was the norm.
Yeah.
Like now
things are changing.
It's
But I'm glad because you see a lot of people who are like, I want to be a founder, let me go do a business course and pay someone who's not like a professor and not like an official university or school to do a course with them. And I'm like, why didn't you just do this at university where you will be accredited, you will get a degree out of it? I think that's one of the things that I hope, as you said, it is changing, and you've been seeing that from the CVs that are coming in. But I really, really enjoyed my undergraduate business school degree. I learned so much about professionalism, the projects that we did there, the simulations of pretending like you owned a business. All of that comes back to me now. So to anyone listening in, if you're thinking about what to study at uni, business management, like, we're not stupid kids, I promise. And people always thought we were stupid for doing business management at uni.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, so is that something that you look at if you get CVs on your end? Is university really important for you?
Not really. I mean, we have people who are not from the UK that work at Biotation as well.
Yeah.
And I almost kind of love that because I'm like, you're a first generation immigrant. You are hungry. You want to make it. Like, you need a visa to be here. Like, you really, really, really want this job. Like, this job, this company is everything to you.
Yeah.
And that was who I used to be. So I wouldn't say university degrees are important.
Because again, the landscape's changed so much. Because my mum and dad were like, if you want to do well and you want to get a job, you need a degree on that CV. Whereas now, as someone hiring, okay, it shows great commitment, but that's not the first and foremost thing that we're after if someone wants to join us.
But I've also learned, like, I chased brand names when I first got my venture funding because I was like, oh, we have money. So, like, let me go and get the best of the best CVs.
Yeah.
And guess what? I was bitten, a couple of times where I thought, oh, amazing brand names, big companies, big startups, like such a great title. Honestly, at the end of the day, what really matters is your attitude. And to be honest, how much you love the brand and the product itself. And if those things were never there, they're not going to suddenly pop up on the job. So, we're very strict when it comes to hiring. We will ask in our hiring application, what is your username on By Rotation? And we will check the history of how much this person has used the app, when they created an account. Did they create it the week that they made an application? It's a free app. You never cared about this company and you suddenly care about it because you want a job. I think things like this, when you're so early stage and the team is quite tight knit, there's only 15 of us, it really matters because that old saying really goes, which is one bad apple can really, the entire basket. But there's so many learnings there. But I think with the business school lessons, I really understood that funding is not the end all. Just because you raise a lot of money externally doesn't mean you will definitely be successful.
For sure. And I think that ties very nicely into every episode. We're doing a little segment called Things I Wish I Knew.
Yeah.
Playing on the surname. So I guess just to wrap up, anything that you would tell your younger self, I suppose now that we're 6 years deep into By Rotation, what do you wish you knew earlier on?
So very early on, like when I was a teenager, I wish that I didn't give up graphic design and being creative. I think I discovered boys and I discovered the world of finance. So I suddenly didn't care so much about creating beautiful graphics anymore. And that's all come back, graphic design and creating content, the C word. So important, right? And then I guess before I started the company, I'd probably say that, fundraising and looking for external capital is not the only way to build a very successful business. What you really need to think about is your exit. And if someone wants to buy your company, you have 100% of your business, you're going to get 100% of the earnings from that. And I think there's a lot to be said about being self-sufficient and doing it on your own. So I encourage everyone who's listening in to really think about focusing on your product or your service and not so much about getting investment money. First, prove your product. Prove that people actually want to buy it and try and make it profitable. If you really realize it needs money to scale and you don't have the money, you don't have $5 million, that is the point where you go externally and you say, I need money to make this a global technological solution. And then I guess more recently, I think I find it so important to be a well-rounded person. And I've realized more and more that the way that I'm only truly happy is when I get to be my authentic self. And maybe that's not what is expected of a founder, of a tech CEO and all of that. But I don't care. I wear beads, I wear pink, I wear dresses. I post about my holidays and my bikinis. I don't care. And I'm not worried about breaking the norm of what is expected of a tech CEO.
Amazing. So I guess crystal ball in front of you, where do you see By Rotation in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I'd like to have a larger market share in the US. I'd like to see more than 50% of the UK population knowing about By Rotation. I think maybe about 6 million people know about it, which is 10% at the moment. We are launching in the Middle East in the next 6 months, which is exciting.
Huge.
Thank you. So I really just want to see it becoming more and more of a global play and become synonymous with the word rental.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming in. This has been so interesting.
Thank you, Claudia.
I'm going to go on By Rotation now. Thanks for listening to Bishness as usual. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes will drop every Monday. So until then, stay inspired and we'll get back down to Bishness next week.